destroy humanity. In Dr. Roberts' medical text, he has a page on pre-embalming. And he looked at me and he said, Betty, this can kill 200 million people.
Jeez.
I said, well, it already has. And some people have lost as many as 8 babies because of the miscarriages from it. You know, they tell women don't use alcohol. Well, what do you think's in aspartame? But wood alcohol that they're using while they're pregnant, and they don't even have the decency to put a warning on there. And as far as young people are concerned, also, when they're in school, they can't think. They have memory loss. It reduces IQ. In fact, I was so concerned about the behavioral problems and psychiatric problems that it is causing kids because our kids today are medicated instead of educated.
Yeah.
That I asked all the experts to write new reports on how it destroys the brains of our children. And I put that in actually, Don Harkins helped us with this. They were going to put out a brochure, put it in one Microsoft document called Report for Schools. And last year, for Aspartame Awareness Weekend, we emailed that to schools, Board of Educations, all over the world to try to get them to take it out of the schools to prevent, what's happening to the kids.
What happened, Betty, that got you on this bandwagon so many years ago?
Well, actually, George, I was trying to retire. Actually, my husband he had his own business, and he said, now I'm going to show you the world. And about that time, he had a friend who appeared to be dying. He had Parkinson's. And you'd get close to him, and his arms and legs would kick out. Think of Michael Fox. And a physician told me at the time, he said, did you know that aspartame was a deadly poison? I said, well, I heard about it. So I asked to be referred to the world expert, Dr. H.J. Roberts. That's how I met him. And he said he's probably drinking a Diet Coke and taking his L-Dopa, and it's interacting. I said, you mean to tell me that this product called an additive interacts with drugs? He said, yes, you better get him off of it right away. It actually can precipitate Parkinson's. And as soon as I did, about 4 days later, all his reactions stopped because that's exactly what he was doing. And I read Dr. Roberts' first book and found out, that it precipitates and mimics MS and seizures, and I'd get people off of it. They'd walk out of wheelchairs. Their seizures would stop. And so we're religious people, we're witnesses, and my husband said, well, I'll give you my retirement funds because we can't have this knowledge and let people who have no earthly idea it's a poison. We don't have the billions to fight these criminals. And so I used his return instead of seeing the world. We've been trying to save it and set up this global volunteer force, which is now in 39 nations, with everybody working free just to educate the public and to save lives and to try to get it banned.
Is it true that aspartame is responsible for 75% of the complaints that the FDA gets?
Oh, yes, or more. And they admitted that themselves. In fact, in congressional hearings, and we put them on mpwhi.com, both congressional hearings, it was admitted that the FDA was getting so many complaints that they were sending the victims to the AIDS hotline because they couldn't take all these complaints. And that's why there were congressional hearings and testimony of people, pilots having seizures. There is, also the scientists were speaking out. Dr. Roberts was there, and there was actually 3. And the FDA themselves, the FDA toxicologists testified against the FDA. And I can quote it from, by heart, where Dr. Adrian Gross said, this violates the Delaney Amendment, which says you can't put anything in food that will cause cancer, and therefore the FDA should not have been able to set an allowable dose. And if the FDA violates its own law, who is left to protect the public?
Absolutely. Betty, I touched briefly on the accidental discovery of aspartame in 1965 by the chemist at G.D. Searle. Tell us exactly, what is this stuff, aspartame?
Well, first of all, it has three components: aspartic acid, which is an excitotoxin, a product that literally stimulates the neurons of the brain to death. Dr. John Oney, who tried to prevent its approval, founded the neuroscience excitotoxicity, and Dr. Russell Blaylock wrote the book on it. And then it's got 50% phenylalanine, which is a neurotoxin when it's isolated, and it floods the brain, lowers the seizure threshold, and depletes serotonin, which is causing all these psychiatric behavioral problems. It is bound by a methyl ester, which is immediately becomes methanol and then converts to formaldehyde and formic acid. Then the molecule breaks down to diketopiperazine, which is a brain tumor agent, so that the whole molecule is literally poison, and it is, Dr. Deagle actually saw it being made. It is genetically engineered on E. coli bacteria. It's a toxic sludge. I think that if anybody could see these vats of this genetically engineered sludge before it's pressed into a white powder, nobody would ever touch it. So there's nothing safe about it, and the propaganda is absurd. They'll tell you this is the building blocks of life, these amino acids. But, when God makes it, there are 20 proteins in, there are 20 amino acids in protein, and they are in balance. And so they don't cause this problem. But when they're isolated, they do. And they'll tell you there's more methanol in oranges than there is in aspartame. But what they don't tell you is in oranges, it is accompanied by ethanol, which is the antidote to methanol toxicity, and takes it out of the body. It is also bound in nature, and whereas in aspartame, it is free. It's bound to pectin in nature. So when you write the FDA and tell them this is free methyl alcohol, they won't even answer you, even if you send the letter certified mail. Dr. Roberts has tried that for years. So, in fact, according to The Ecologist, which is a very prestigious magazine that came out in 2005 and told the whole story, and a 17-page cover story, it starts out by saying that aspartame was actually listed with the Pentagon in an inventory of prospective biochemical warfare weapons submitted to Congress.
It's all about the money. Is saccharin in the same category as aspartame?
Not really. I wouldn't want to put it in my mouth simply because it's a coal tar product. It's a chemical. But it's been on the market 100 years, so it's not going to do what aspartame is doing. But, on top of everything else, now they've got Splenda, which is a chlorocarbon poison, liberates free chlorine. And, and fortunately, just like sugar, is made a safe sweetener, so there is something out there for people to take that's safe. And that's what we're doing this weekend, Aspartame Awareness Weekend, as we've written a flyer to try to get these poisons off restaurant tables. And so there's, even your sugar alcohols, if you use too much of it, you get cramps and you get bloating and diarrhea. And so, and people are using them because they think, oh, well, we've got this epidemic of obesity and I want to lose weight. But aspartame is low-cal weight gain.
Absolutely. Betty, James Turner is going to join us in just a moment, a consumer affairs consultant. He will tell us the incredible story of how aspartame got approved by the FDA. Joining us now is James Turner, serving as a consumer affairs consultant to Governor John Gilligan of Ohio, special counsel to the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs, and the Government Operations Subcommittee on Government Research. James wrote the book, The Chemical Feast, the Nader Report on Food Protection at the Food and